So today we'll create an ambient drone voice with the Polysynth, utilizing some of its unique features. This will very much be a beginner-friendly video. This is the result. As always, I added the ideas from this video to the PDF of tips and tricks I keep on updating. It's available on my Patreon together with the project file from this video and from many other videos. So the first thing we need is a way to bring the Polysynth to drone. We can do this quite easily with a clip. We will create today a drone in the note A, so I will add the A note, A1 in my case, all the way through. Now if I play this now, each time the clip starts, also the sound will reset and we'll get this annoying click. Right, so what we need is to stretch the beginning of the note just a bit more and then set a cue marker to the same spot so it starts before the clip starts and it will basically play forever. It will drone. Right, now on the Polysynth we have two oscillators, right, 1 and 2. And we can mix them or blend between them in various ways, but let's for now concentrate on the first oscillator. Right, we can change its shape to a pulse wave all the way left here. Right, and then add pulse width modulation. Right, so I will go with an LFO, set this to be quite slow, and modulate the pulse width. Maybe even slower. Right, we can add even more movement by using the sync effect. Right, so also here I will add an LFO. I just hold Control and I can grab this LFO and duplicate it. Right, in this case I would like to have unipolar modulation, so it just takes this parameter in one direction, maybe even slower. Right, and modulate the sync. And now we can add even unison, and by adding unison we add more copies of this oscillator. We can detune them, which will add even more movement. So let's go with 5 voices of unison and again detune them. Right, somewhere here. We can even spread the voices in the stereo field, so we have a bigger sound. And now we will take this even further by adding the second oscillator, and again we can mix both oscillators in different ways. But for now let's concentrate on the second oscillator. Just take the blend control here all the way to the right. In this case we have it set to an octave higher, which is okay. Let's also go here with the pulse wave, again shape all the way to the left. Add some movement to it, so again I can just duplicate the LFO that I have here, maybe slower, and again modulate the pulse width. Right, so also here we have some movement. And now let's really mix the two oscillators. Now by default we have the blend mode, where we can blend between them, or the mix mode. Right, but there are other modes that in my opinion are much more interesting. For example, the AM mode or amplitude modulation. This means that oscillator 2 will modulate the amplitude of oscillator 1, and the mix control becomes the amount of modulation. So if I go all the way right, we have full modulation. And now everything we do to oscillator 2 will of course affect the result. Right, so let's also add unison to the second oscillator. Let's go with the 3 voices, detune them, and again spread them in the stereo field. Now we can take this even a step further by adding noise to this that will also be a part of the modulation. Maybe something like this. We get a nice noisy crunchy texture. Now we also have here the filter section. We have different types of filters that we can choose from. I really like notch filters for even more movement. Notch basically means that the filter will attenuate only a certain band of frequencies, leaving everything else untouched. And by adding modulation to this, we can have a really nice movement or motion effect. Right, so this here is the notch. Right, and again, we will add modulation to this with another LFO. Right, maybe something like this. Now we actually have another filter we can use. We have here also a high pass filter. Right, and I will set this to about, let's say, 100 Hertz. So it will make space in the lower frequencies, so later on we can add more layers. Right, so now really for adding more layers, we will need to group this polysynth right inside an instrument layer. So we can do this either in the right-click menu, right group, or you can hit Ctrl G. Now it's inside an instrument layer, and we can add another layer with another polysynth. Right, in this case I will solo this so we can concentrate just on this one. The first oscillator we will leave as a saw wave. Right, the second one let's change again to pulse. And now again we can crossfade between them. Right, with the mix control, and we can do this for example with an LFO. Right, set this to the center. Add an LFO, again bipolar, we want this to be in both directions. Right, but what we will do now, we will do this at audio rates, so at higher frequencies, and we can make sure that everything stays more or less musical by having the LFO follow the incoming pitch information. Right, so instead of hertz, we have here pitch. Now I have to stop and start it again, so it will take effect. Right, and now we modulate the blend at audio rates. Right, and instead of just detuning the oscillators, we can also add random modulation to them and have their pitch always in motion. So I will add the random modulator. We don't need polyphony in this case, right? We have just one note. Again, bipolar, and then all the way smooth. Right, let me stop this for a second, and then we can modulate the pitch just slightly. Right, once to the left, once to the right. And we have nice movement. And now instead of using unison to create stereo width, we can have panning modulation. Right, we have panning for each oscillator. Right, so let's have another or two more LFOs. Right, and modulate the panning. Right, but again we will do this at audio rates. So instead of hertz, let's go with pitch on both of them. Again, I will have to stop and start this. Right, so now we modulate them at audio rates, and we can have one LFO, for example, an octave down. So instead of 1, an octave down would be half of it, so it will be 0.5. And the other one an octave up, so instead of 1 it should be double, so 2. And detune them slightly. Right, so we have also audio rate panning modulation, again for stereo width. We can even modulate the filter at audio rates. In this case it's a low pass filter. Right, we have here the FM, filter FM knob that will send the mix to modulate the filter. Right, we can add some feedback, some drive, maybe I'll take the level a bit down before, to push the audio into the filter even more. Maybe add some resonance. more smooth random modulation to modulate the filter, right? This. Now let's blend this with the first layer. I'm going to take the level all the way down, unsolo it, and bring it in. Right, so we have a nice texture, and before we add another layer that will take care of the lower frequencies, let's add some effects to these two layers. So to the first layer, I would like to add some diffusion. So I will use a couple of blur devices just on this layer, right? Blur, let's play this, maybe solo it for a second. Right, maybe 3. Change the delay times from one another. Right, and then to the second layer, I would like to add a shimmer delay. So we need the delay plus, right? We have here access to the feedback effects, and shimmer basically means that in the feedback loop, there is a pitch shifter with an octave up. So every time, every cycle, the audio will go an octave higher. So in the feedback effects here, we will use the pitch shifter, set is an octave up, so 12 semitones up. Right, let's listen just to this, add some mix. Right, so now we have a shimmer delay. And again together. Okay, now let's add another layer, of course, with another polysynth. Again, solo it for a second. And again, this one will be our base layer for the lower frequencies. So I will take both oscillator and octave down, so from 8" to 16 and from 4 to 8. And in this case, for the blending mode, we will go with the maximum logic mode. So now all the way to the right, we get the maximum values of both oscillators. I can show you this also in the grid for a second. Right, I have here two waveforms, once a sine, once a saw wave. And again, I'm using maximum logic to mix them. Right, and you can see the shape that we are getting. If we look just on the, or we add just the sine to this, right, you can see only when the values of the sine are higher than the values or the actual level of the saw wave, we get the shape of the sine. Right, the same with the saw. Right, only when the saw is higher than the sine, we get the saw. And this is why we get this unique shape, once a sine, sometimes a saw, and so on. Right, so it's an interesting blending mode, and this is exactly how it works here also on the polysynth. Right, so it sounds like this. Again, without and with. Right, but of course we will add movement to this, for example, with shape modulation, random shape modulation. Right, again, we don't need polyphony. Let's have this bipolar. We're going to modulate the shape of the second oscillator, and we want this to be to the left and to the right, so we need bipolar modulation. Again, all the way smooth, a bit slower maybe. Right, so we have some modulation here, maybe also pulse width modulation. Again with an LFO, maybe slower. Let's add also unison to the second oscillator. 3 voices. Detune them. Right, maybe even spread them in the stereo field. And now, again, I want this to be more bassy, so we will use a high-pass filter to add bass frequencies. It sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it works really nicely. So we go with the high-pass filter. Now I want to, again, we have the drone in the note A, so I want to set the frequency of the filter to the note A. If I just delete everything, I can enter A. In our case, it will be A0. Right, so it will be tuned to this note. And now with the resonance, we start adding bass frequencies. Right, now to add even more grit, we can add wave shaping. We have different modes. We have soft clipping, wave folding. I will go with this here, the adds artifacts around 0. This will basically add more noise, more grit. Right, and now to add even more space to this, we can smear just the signal that's stereo and keep the center more stable, and we will do this with the mid-side split device. Right, if I solo just the sides, this is how it sounds like, or what it sounds like. Right, so now we can smear just the side again with the blur device. So we get this nice huge sound. Now before we bring in the other layers, I would like to have global control over the brightness of this whole drone. So in the effects slot here of the instrument layer itself, we will use the filter plus. Right, it's already set to a low pass filter. Maybe take the level, the gain here a bit down. Right, so now I will add also the other layers. Again, take this level all the way down, unsolo it, and bring it back in. Right, now the filter plus has built-in panning modulation, so it will modulate the filter to the left and to the right differently, right? And this is the LFO that we have here. If I change this instead of bar, we will go with hertz. And let's take this down quite a bit so it's nice and slow. And then here we can add this modulation. If you are with headphones, you can hear this quite clearly. Right, let's add even more random modulation for the cutoff. Right, maybe again this will be the lowest it will go. No need for polyphony. Unipolar is okay, but we want it smooth and a bit slower. Right, and I would like to make the high frequencies even more smeared. So after the filter, only when the filter will open, we will add an effect to this. So we will use the multiband effects too, right? I can solo just the highs. Maybe take the frequency here down a bit. Right, and now we can add a reverb with supermassive just to this. Quite a lot. Right, and we have a nice drone that we can use as a background for other voices, but before I unmute what I have here, thank you again for watching. Consider joining us on Patreon. Cheers!